I'm joined by Martyn Perkins, Garff MHK, and Martyn's been doing the rounds of media over the last few weeks, pushing for having our own airline. Now, Arini, this is the only example we can keep bringing up. Arini loses money for Guernsey, so why do you still think this is a way to go for the Isle of Man to have a national airline? Is that what you want?
I think a national airline is the way to go, Paul. And of course, Arini does lose money for the Guernsey population. But they've taken a decision that I think it was 5 million, somewhere in that region last year, that it was money well spent. Now, if you look at the situation we've got at the moment, we have on the island approximately 37 people that are laid off from Stobart Air and Flybe, and they're all on the island. Now, if you put all the pieces of the jigsaw together, there are a lot of aircraft out there that could be chartered at a very reasonable cost. Not chartered, I beg your pardon, at least at a very reasonable cost. Now, also, you couple that with the staff that are available, you couple the fact that London, Heathrow, Gatwick, Manchester, Liverpool have slots that we could pick up at very reasonable prices.
How do you know that? How do you know they're cheaper than they're going? I mean, on the present circumstances, I can see where it may be coming from, but getting things into Heathrow is absolutely impossible, isn't it?
Well, and a lot of airlines have pulled out of Heathrow.
But Arini's there, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
They've got it, so they're holding on to it for dear life,
Absolutely,
of course.
Yeah. But there are slots available. I mean, take Luton, for example. They're in big trouble, Luton Airport, because they haven't got the rail link connected through yet. But it's always been a sort of an also around Luton, hasn't it? But there are slots available that we should pick up. And like we purchased a steam packet and held it at arm's length to secure our sea services, I feel the time is right now to secure our air services. Vital air links to the Isle of Man. We know that we're going to have to do the medical links, whatever happens. The big operations are always going to be done in the UK, Liverpool and Manchester. And as I understand it, and I might be wrong, but I believe we are going to underwrite the losses on that route anyway, and we have no control over it. They will not be employing us.
Hang on, is that you know it or you think about it?
I've heard through the grapevine.
Well, let's make that clear that we don't. This is the Logan Air one.
Yes, I did qualify it by saying as I understand it.
Okay.
And if we are doing that with no control over the route ourselves,
can't you ask a question, by the way, on this? Can't you clarify what's going on? Will they tell you, or is this under the usual?
I haven't been able to find out, Paul. I wish I could, because I think this deserves to be pulled up the priority list, because it is of national importance. The fact that we could approach Arini or Stobart or Logan Air to actually do the backroom stuff for us, to do the booking and everything else. But I believe that we should have control over the times it departs in the island, the fact that we can use Manx crew. They're on a dole at the moment. We want them to be paying Manx tax. We want that 3 legs of man on the tail of the aircraft. The feel-good factor it gives the Manx public, the advertising you get from it, is of national importance to me.
We've been down this route. I mean, it wasn't owned by the government, but Manx Airlines was a Manx company, and others have been based here, as you say. It doesn't seem to ever kind of work. And you're presumably alluding to having closed skies to make this work at all, are you?
No, it would be like Arini. Arini, sorry, get it right. They have still open skies, but they have certain routes that they are...
and they have this bizarre thing that got people competing against the national airline. Well, I say national, the government-owned airline.
Well, yeah, but at the moment it's not working, is it? Because EasyJet come along with cheap prices, but in actual fact, the late flight coming out of the Isle of Man, as it used to be, you had to have a hotel in Gatwick, so it wasn't that cheap after all. And plus the fact we were tail end Charlie on the route, so if it got delayed or held up in Italy or wherever it came from, we always suffered.
And it's clear, so you'd have a government-owned airline, and then you'd still have EasyJet or whoever coming in doing what they want, picking up all the fats basically, and you're leaving you with the not so good routes, because that's what they do. They bring in a price that you probably can't even touch, because they have such a mean machine.
But the times on which they would do it, Paul, are they'd fit us in as and when they could. What I'm talking about is key departure times off the island when we need it, and key returning times run by Manx people. Now, if you are returning home, you will make sure, as a pilot, that that aircraft gets, without bending the rules or anything, but you'll just make sure everything's in place to get home, rather than somebody who is not based on the island would say, right, okay,
they can't do that. For starters, they've got laws, and that's the end of it.
Absolutely.
So let's don't. I mean, that's a bit naive to think that you can just get them in because.
I'm not saying that, Paul, but it would focus the mind wonderfully, wouldn't it, and make sure that.
So let's be clear again. You're happy to have other people competing, and yet you still want to have the government pick up the tab for any.
It would be run
losses.
at arm's length.
Oh, here we go.
Now,
what's that mean exactly?
Like the steam packet.
The
government
arm's length.
The government is a major shareholder, but at the moment, if we are underwriting somebody else's losses, I can't see the problem.
Well, you need to find out.
Well, I'm working on it. If anybody knows, please give me a call.
And while you're here, this whole business arena on the weekend, they had this charter that's coming in with the rugby players. They didn't get in on time because the airport wasn't open. It took days, Monday evening, before the press release was put out about this.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this? I mean, there was obviously miscommunication.
Yeah.
But do you think it was handled well?
We've got to get our act together, haven't we? On all stuff like that. The island's front door showcase thing, and we fail on unlocking the front door of the airport. It's these little bits of key things that happen that show the island in a bad light, and we've got to make sure that's all ironed out.
Okay, to finish this one, how do you go about getting the Isle of Man an airline? Do you put a proposal forward? Do you have to get Treasury on board? How can you move it from an idea to something that's potentially happening?
I believe there are moves afoot, and what I hope is that the right negotiating stance is taken. At the moment, the island is in a strong position because of the depressed industry, and we go into it in a small way. We are holding the shots. People would want to come to the Isle of Man, and we know that the island's economy will be picking up. In fact, it hasn't. I don't think it's been hit as bad as the UK economy. And of course, when things do get better, which will be a couple of years down the line, we need to make sure it's easy for business people to get to the Isle of Man, and that people can travel at the start of the day and the end of the day when they particularly want to.